Across the nation, there are plenty of houses that are considered haunted, but some of them have such malevolent or unrestful spirits that the houses are known nationally as cursed. One of these houses is simply called the Sallie House. Considered Kansas's most haunted house, the Sallie House was not initially part of the supernatural and for a good many years, at least from what the records say and whatnot. Built in the 1800s, it was meant to house Michael Finney and his family, and many more members down the line. However, during this process, at least 4 of these family members died inside the home. Eventually, the Finneys would leave the house, and in the 1990s, a new couple, Tony and Debbie Pickman, would take ownership of the place. During their stay, they would witness and experience paranormal activity, and the first to be recorded in the home. So this story is all about the Sallie House, and this is Grim Captivation, the paranormal podcast that delves into the mysterious, dark, and macabre tales of the supernatural. Now, before telling the supernatural happenings, it's good to highlight that the Finney family members had died in the house, and that the home was in their family for so many years up until the Pickmans. And not only is this, historical in a way, but it's also a good point to highlight because some paranormal stories, if there are people that have died inside the house itself, it could very well potentially mean that these family members still linger inside, and perhaps the family members that did pass on were not, happy with the new family, or perhaps one of the family members was more darker than usual, or things like that. The list can kind of go on. But it also means that a lot of historical events happened between the time the house was built and the time when the Pickmans first recorded the paranormal activity. So did the Finneys ever have their own supernatural experiences? Did they brush it off, if they did? Or perhaps nothing even happened until one of the older spirits, like I said, pretty much caught wind of a new family moving into the Finney home and decided to pretty much haunt and literally hurt the Pickmans in the process. So there are many questions and theories that can be presented here. So going back to the Pickmans, they originally began to feel the paranormal when lights would dim on their own, animals would act strangely, and when they welcomed a new child into their own family, a strange event of growing mold seeped inside and disrupted them and their house. Not much later, the couple came home one night to see a bunch of the stuffed animals for their child sitting in a circle on the floor of the nursery. So that's, not creepy enough, it's kind of odd, to say the least. That same night, Tony began to feel an intense burning on his back, and later found that there were 3 harsh scratches down his spine. Now, as this is part of the spiritual side of the paranormal, at least on my side here, I normally associate some numbers being, religious of sorts. With this, I find that the 3 scratches could potentially mean that it's an insult to the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Of course, since this is a malevolent spirit, it makes 3 marks to show its demonic presence physically. It may be a long shot for some, but, I like to present it with my own ideas and thoughts, pretty much just saying that, the demonic spirit is here in the house, and it has so much power already that it can already physically harm somebody. And 3 scratches, obviously it's the Trinity, and a lot of people think, Trinity gives protection over them. But I didn't really look into if the Pickmans were religious or not. So from that attack, the Pickmans began to research the home and found out not only about the deaths in the Finney family, but a dark story that was latched onto the house itself. It is rumored that a little girl named Sallie was supposed to have a serious operation inside the house. Her mother came to the house one day, frantic that her little girl suddenly collapsed. As the doctor examined her, he found that she had abdominal pain and knew there was little time to perform. During this operation, it is said that the doctor began performing before the anesthesia had set in, so all of the pain that he was operating on was basically just all felt on her for that very poor soul, very unfortunate soul. So she died on that operating table, possibly thinking that the man was perhaps maybe even torturing her from all of that pain. So the rumor continues that Sallie has haunted this home because of her demise and causes harm because of her increasing pain during the surgery. However, there hasn't been clear proof that Sallie ever existed in the home or that any little girl actually died there. On the other side, there have been notices that a Dr. Charles Finney ran his business on the first floor of the house. So there might be some potential ideas, or, well, I mean, it's obviously if he ran his office, his business there, that patients had been in and out of the place, but whether there was an accidental death because of his surgeries, nothing can be really too clear about that. So, learning about the history of Sallie, the Pickmans actually tried to welcome Sallie as an unfortunate victim. They allowed the spirit to be in the home as their own phantom daughter, believing that Sallie only wanted to be part of a family. But the good sensations wouldn't last too long. Tony would continue to be attacked, and at one of their child's birthday parties, a random doll caught fire for no reason. And we all know that fire is never good, especially when it comes to the paranormal and lighting random fires. It only took 2 years for the Pickmans to realize what serious danger they were in, and left the house for good. Now, although the house is mainly up for tours nowadays, in the present day, which people can stay, I think, like for a few hours or even overnight, I believe, the dark rumors of the house keep going on. In the early 2000s, it was apparently discovered that a pentagram was drawn in the basement and where satanic rituals were performed. Scorched burn marks remain in the basement and where it never comes off. Additionally, in the master bedroom closet, there have been traces of blood found through the use of luminol, a substance that highlights the proteins found in blood underneath a black light. So, there are still traces of dark entities kind of roaming about the house. And I think a lot of the paranormal investigators and whatnot, visitors of the house, daring adventurers and things like that, they go in and search for Sallie, but I think the whole entity of Sallie isn't really, the little girl, so to speak. It's more of just like a dark entity trying to persuade others to come in the house and then get latched onto whoever is, like the weakest and things like that, because that's kind of how demonic possession works, is that they target, the most vulnerable, I can barely say that word, victim, and they kind of like pick and choose almost. And so Sallie's not really like the spirit of a little girl, but it's more of just like the actual demonic presence. And the blood found in that master bedroom closet, it could be anything really. Because like there's not a lot of like deep stories for the Sallie House. It's just a lot of dark rumors and stories. But and then additionally with the pentagram and the satanic rituals in the basement, and the scorch marks that remain in the basement itself, is definitely a wary thing to to really be cautious of, especially just because if the burn marks are already there and it's still there to this day, it's probably some bad stuff. So presently, many paranormal investigators have visited the Sallie House in hopes of finding presences of either Sallie or any other spiritual essences, along with feeling unnerved and definitely not alone. These investigators have experienced multiple video and audio equipment suddenly failing or batteries draining all at once, unexplained bruises or scratches that appeared either during or after the investigation, and the mysteriously odd cold spots all throughout the house. There are people who are closely attuned or considered empaths. They may feel the cold spots even more, the lingering presence of whatever spirit is there, or possibly feeling a burning sensation on their backs. It seems that nothing there is actually spiritually good, unless if you bring it in yourself, and that a powerful demonic has lashed itself to the home, warning visitors to either go away and never return, or to stay and suffer the consequences. Now, there are a few things that visitors are actually not allowed to do, including sleeping on the beds, attempting to cleanse the house, use a Ouija board, or visit the basement. There are a few thoughts on this, and I actually think it's maybe even best to leave it like this. I absolutely love the Conjuring movie, as you guys have seen. In one of the quotes from the film goes, "Sometimes it's better to leave the genie in the bottle." Although the house is plagued with a strong demonic force, it seems to stay there and only there. There have been instances where some paranormal investigators have heard the name of Sallie in other locations, but, like I said, in my opinion, it may be that other spirits have reached into their minds and pulled such a memorable or even traumatic moment during those investigations, and it keeps that name of Sallie really close to their heart because of how, I guess, like horrifying or terrifying their investigations were, whether it was good or bad, if they actually made contact with the demonic spirit or not. But nevertheless, the dark spirit that remains in the Sallie House is still there. So, of course, the question for all of you is, would you visit the Sallie House? And if you would, could you stay there the whole night? And yeah, that's kind of like all I had for the Sallie House. So I would like to see what you guys think about the Sallie House. If there really is any demonic entity there, if there actually is a Sallie. I think, like, from a majority of what I read through and the research and all that, was that Sallie is not an actual, like I said, Sallie wasn't an actual little girl who was accidentally killed during the procedure. I think it was just like a dark story because the entity itself in the house is dark, and the whole thing with demonic entities is that they lie all the time. So it only makes sense because, demons come from Lucifer, the father of lies, so it only makes sense for dark spirits to make up all these, traumatic stories, like, oh, little girl gets killed accidentally during a procedure and everybody feels bad for her. But then when you go in and realize that the house is actually plagued with dark spirits, then it's like, oh, okay, Sallie means that she's after revenge and things like that. It's like, for me, it's more of they're building out off of that horrific story just to almost like egg the spirit on to really make themselves known. And I actually chose to do this Sallie House episode just because I have watched man, I apologize. I've been watching a lot of ghost hunting, things like that, paranormal investigations, and one of the channels that I watch went to the Sallie House itself and did a little investigation there, and they did get some answers and whatnot. And it is creepy, definitely creepy. And they actually ended up doing the, Ouija board and visiting the basement, so I guess they had some like special clearance because those are the things that like anybody, like random visitors, they can't do. So I thought that was kind of funny too. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the Sallie House. Would you visit it? Do you believe that Sallie's a real spirit, or is Sallie just a demonic spirit that is just tricking people into thinking that it's Sallie? So would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know if I could cover anything else. I do have a list of Grim Captivation. This was a short episode, but I have plenty more to come, and I just wanted to get back into the spooks a little bit. And yeah, so it won't be this short normally. It'll probably be a little bit longer, but because Sallie House is kind of a shorter, it's the more you research it, the more same facts you kind of stumble across. I thought it was a good intro to kind of get, kick back into the paranormal vibes for this year. So I'll be starting a lot of new projects. So not only am I pretty much revamping Grim Captivation, but I'll be starting a whole bunch of new projects for you guys. So I hope that you guys will be enjoying it. So with all that being said and all the rambling out of the way, just be tuned for another episode, and I'll see you in the next one.